So we're in Clovis, California. We're just doing an inspection of a wax ring upstairs toilet. Homeowner contacted us and let us know that they're getting dripping sound down below, and so we came out. Homeowner flushed the toilet, and we could hear it sound similar to what you would hear if you, let's say, spilled a 6-ounce glass of water up on a countertop, and then it rolled off onto the floor. That sound is what it sounded like, and fortunately, or unfortunately, but fortunately, there's a fireplace insert down below, and that's what the water was hitting. So we believed it was the toilet leaking because it happened after flushing, as opposed to a constant dripping, which would indicate potential water leak in the wall here. All this piping, I'm assuming, is overhead. Sometimes they pipe it underneath. This is a 2-story home, but a lot of times they'll just come up to the attic space where they can work freely overhead. Sometimes it's piped from below. Just depends on the plumbing company. But anyway, so we pulled this off. First thing we noted was the bolt on the left was sheared off. So that little nut on the bottom, they're supposed to be, that's a duplicate of what you got right there. That's the nut, and there's a little flat head that goes through. And so that pulled out before we even took the toilet out. If you look down here, there's a little bit of corrosion around the back that you can see. Maybe a little bit of moisture. That's down all the way on the wood. Sorry about the wiggling around. As long as it's dry enough, you should be okay. But you can see water sitting up on top here. Certainly could have been from when we pulled the bowl and it dripped on there. But more than likely, you've got water dripping out and then getting down into the cavity. So hopefully everything's dry enough and the flange is secure enough. You can see the moisture down here. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I can see it because I'm sitting here looking at it. So there's moisture all around the perimeter. Hopefully the flange is anchored well enough to where we can just put new bolts in, bolt the toilet back down, and we're good. Sometimes with these plywood floors, if it's too saturated, then those bolts that actually bolt the flange, this blue portion, to the subfloor, they're not holding anything anymore because the wood is so saturated. So anyways, a little pre-video. We'll pull this up. Any further problems while we're looking at the flange, we'll take another video. And then of course we'll take another video once the toilet is set. Outside of that, this portion of the video is done. So still in Clovis, California, we have the gaskets, the wax rings up. What's really interesting is they have two flanged wax rings on here, or horn. It's a little black plastic. It's a diverter that helps actually, divert the water into the hole, which is great. But there's two of them. Normally you'd put one on the bottom and then a single wax ring on the top. Not sure what happened, but you can see that this wax is completely pulled apart, and that this side of the flange right here, you can see not the flange that's in the wax ring. You can see it's bent down. So it looks like when they went to set the toilet, they missed the hole, bent this over sideways, and you can see all the corrosion in between, which is in, I don't want to touch it, but which is in between the two, and then on the upper lip here, and then around the perimeter. So my thought is it wasn't seated correctly. Why this broke, I don't know. You can actually see the bolt, the bottom portion of the bolt, the head of the bolt, still in place. And then, of course, here's the other bolt. What we're going to do is go ahead and put new bolts in, new wax rings in, go ahead and chisel out all of this DAP. And then there was one plastic shim you can see right here that I would imagine was sitting right there. And so we'll get the right shims in here, get it caulked back in, tighten it down, and hopefully it'll resolve their issue downstairs. And then we'll take another video. So third portion of this video, still here in Clovis, California. We've got the new wax rings in, new brass bolts. So typically the wax ring that has the flange on it goes on the bottom, and then just a single wax ring on top to build it up, because the flange is recessed in the floor, and that's typical when you get a tile floor. Sometimes you get backer board and then tile, or a lot of buildup and then tile, so it just buries that ring down there. Anyways, two new brass bolts. Those are the long bolts because the flange is so deep. it appears that everything will hold. It's hard to tell until you start bolting things down whether or not that flange pulls up through the floor. But we've got the bolts in, got new wax rings in. We'll set it in there and see if that's enough wax. If not, we'll add one more single. If not, we'll set it down in there, get it tightened up, get it caulked in, take another video when we're done. So, still here in Clovis, California. Toilet is set, and so I showed you previous videos. We've got moisture down on the subfloor, which is never good. And the reason being is, even if the flange is anchored to it, that moisture becomes, at least in plywood, it acts as a sponge. So you get movement, and we don't want movement. Additionally, we showed the homeowner that the tile cutout is about the same perimeter as the bowl. So where you see the caulking line at the bottom, if you were to pull that caulking out and just take a little edge of a putty knife, it would drop down into the cavity, which means this side of the bowl is not supported. That side of the bowl is not supported. We scooted it all the way to the left, which means that way. First time we set it, there was a huge gap over on this side. So we scooted it to as far to the left as we could, as the bolts would allow in the bolt holes at the bottom, and got it scooted over, and it just left a little tiny opening on this side. But the base of the toilet is about this thick, and you really want the base of that toilet sitting down on hard surface, and it's not. So between, this is about a 10-year-old home, and they just started noticing the, and it's original owner, no new tile floor, nothing. So I'd imagine this has been happening since the home was built, and it just developed over a period of time. So between the tile being so wide and there's no really solid base on both sides of the toilet, there is toward the front. Once you move away from the flange, which is about a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8-inch diameter, something from bolt to bolt, from that bolt to the other bolt. Once you move forward to the front part of the elongated bowl, it's sitting down on tile, but it's up in the air. It was up in the air about this high. So we've got shims around the front, about 4 of them, but it doesn't alleviate the original problem, which is little to no support on the sides. That's where, especially around the bolts, that's where you want something underneath, so that when you bolt it down, you're not just compressing, because this is porcelain. This will, too much pressure, it will break. So it's set to the best of our ability. I mean, obviously not everybody can rip a floor out and go into the subfloor and replace it and get it dry and put a new flange on. And I mean, that becomes an $800, $1,000 project between, a carpenter and a plumber and a tile guy. So pretty extensive. So bowl is set. We did go ahead and replace the supply line. We always do, just because anything that's existing, we put it back together and it leaks, then there's nothing we can do about it. We come back out, homeowner's not happy, we're not happy, of course, so we just put in a new supply line. They're only, $8. Braided stainless steel, Fluid Master, top brand, so 3/8 by 7/8 by 20 inches long. So that's brand new. The toilet is flushing, it's filling, it's shutting off correctly. It's caulked back in, let that dry for 24 hours. I'll show you the movement if I can without moving the camera. It's kind of hard not to move the camera while I'm trying to move the toilet. But just to show you, let's see if I can set it up right there and get a picture. Hopefully I can get a picture of that light and not lose my camera. It's not looking like I can. Maybe right there. Hey, let's see. So if you can see any movement in that light, it's hard to see, but from this angle you can see there's movement. And hopefully that was on camera. If not, then that was just a poor attempt to show you that when you move this back and forth, that light, it moves, so you can see the light on the wall slightly move. We can't eliminate that. It's as tight as it's going to get. On a metal ring, on a spongy floor with no support on the tile. So, anyways, we should eliminate the problem downstairs. The whole reason to reset this was, to get that wax resealed so that it wouldn't drip down into the cavity and onto the fireplace, the gas insert downstairs in the living room. So I believe we've got that accomplished. We're going to flush it a couple times with the homeowners down there. Outside of that, this installation is done.